Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I mentioned in my last episode that we had another spiritual warrior, a great friend of mine. I'm not going to go into any waffle. I have read his book, Monsters in My House. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Walt McKinley to 21 Virtues. Walt, how are you doing, my friend?
Jock, what's up, brother, man?
I wasn't even drinking.
What I was thinking about, you and I, so probably almost a year and 3-4 months ago now, you and I did our first podcast episode. You were the second podcast that I was ever on. So wild for me to think that, and the friendship we've created along the way.
Amazing.
But the impact we've created on the way, individually and together.
Yeah.
So I'm so pumped to be back.
I mean, we've shared stages. We met in person, and I actually remember that day that we met. It was like two old military pals that had met up again, and I remember when you were going through. I mean, I want to go on today, right? We're going to talk about your book. We're going to talk about mental health and your passions. And you're obviously there's so much that we need to catch up with. The Legacy Warrior podcast. Yeah. The speaking engagements you've been doing, I mean, you have been, changing people's hearts and minds all over, and I want to say all over the world. But also I want to, and if you're all right with this as well, I want to talk a little bit these 4 keys that you developed, because I think these 4 keys are amazing, life-changing for people. But in case people don't know you, tell them a little bit about your background and your, certainly let's jump into the book as well, because I freaking loved that book. I remember when you were writing it, you'd be sending, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Amazing. But it actually brought me to tears, ladies and gentlemen. So if you haven't read it, go and get it. But over to you, my friend.
Yeah, so I think in order to understand the journey, I love to start people off where I'm at now. So now I'm a #1 best-selling author. I'm a motivational speaker, spoken on stages around the world. I am an entrepreneur. Formerly, I was a naval intelligence officer for 2 decades. I retired. And I was also an executive in a Fortune 500 company. And so all of these things and these experiences I'm going to talk about next really led me onto the path of not only the spiritual warriorship, but really teaching people how to stand in their own power and their own warriorship, so that not only can they feel great, live at their maximum potential, really step into the life that's waiting for them to make the choice to do it, but also so that the ripple effect of them continuing on and teaching people that I'm not going to reach, maybe that only they could, will continue long after I'm gone. And so that legacy and the warrior piece, both, especially legacy warrior, together means a lot to me. And so I'll give you a quick synopsis of my childhood. So I moved 14 times in 16 years. Being horrifically tortured and beat by every adult that I ever came into contact with. I mean, it was my father, my stepmother, my stepfather, a lot of neglect from my mother, who didn't even love herself, much less her kids at times, and foster parents. And so really just thrown around like a piece of garbage between one place or the other based upon the whim of who did and didn't want to take care of me, who did and didn't love me, who was tired of having us kids around, until I was 15 and a half. And moved in with my life hero, my Aunt Diana, and then testified against my father in court 6 months later at 16, where he was convicted of felony child abuse. And that's where my life took a turn, and I went from just surviving minute to minute, day to day, feeling very much like life was happening to me, and that victim mentality and being victimized, but staying in the victim mentality even in the moments when I was there, to, for the first time ever, being able to start to hope and dream and think about what kind of a future I could create. Now, I didn't know how to do it at 16, but I just set out on this journey to figure it out to the point where I'm at today. So it's been such a beautiful ride, brother. And I'm so blessed for all those horrific experiences, because it's made me the powerful warrior I am today, that can go stand in that power for other people and teach them to do the same.
Well, I think that's brilliant. And I think that's something that we need to just kind of echo as well to everyone, because so many people become a victim of their own circumstance. And I think where you have said, they don't see the blessings in every darkness that's there. There is always a blessing if you find it. But you turned what was horrific into an amazing blessing. Now, obviously, when you're going through it, you don't think that way. You have to
Right.
have that aha moment. And if you haven't listened to the episode we did, way back before even COVID, you got to go and listen to that, because that gives you more of the story. But I think it's important that people see that no matter what you're going through, there's a blessing in it that will help you serve others. And that's what you're about. And and I feel that's what spiritual warriorship is about. I just did that in a prior episode. What is it? It's not so much the skills and everything that we develop, or how powerful we are, or how much of a fighter we are, but it's in the mind.
That's right.
And that's where you've managed to conquer your own demons and your own dragons in your mind. Tell us a little bit about that time where you switched on, that, hang on, I can get out of this. I don't have to be in this cycle.
Yeah, I think the story was always written in me to be what I'm supposed to be today. And, I love that people talk about slaying their dragons and whatnot. I'm like, I didn't slay my dragon. Like, I tamed it, I jumped on it, and I rode that further and faster in life than I ever could have just walking in the journey. So many people, to me, Jock, they get so scared of their past.
Yeah.
They run from their pain. They think that they're going to hide from their pain. But I got to tell you, like, the trauma doesn't get tired. You can't hide from it. You can't run from it. It will follow you until the day that you die. You have to truly make the choice to turn around, face it, knock it on its ass, and keep looking out the windshield of life.
Run through it.
Do that. When you realize the pain is purpose, the mess is the message. Like, the test was a testimony. There's so many different ways to say this. And you stop re-victimizing yourself. And this is key. And this was key for me in my journey, because I've lived in the pit of despair, feeling sorry for myself, which is why I talk about this the way that I do. When I realized every time I'm thinking of my abuse because I didn't heal, it threw me into this tizzy all day. I'd be pissed. I'd be angry. People I love the most are walking around on eggshells around me. And I realized I was victimizing myself every single day. It was happening over and over. Meanwhile, the people who did hurt me, those hurt human beings who hurt me, they were still living their miserable life because they didn't have the courage to face their own stuff. So the only person that was being affected by the way that I was processing in that moment was me. And then the people I love the most around me. And I realized if I want to really break generational cycles, if I really want to do something different, then I gotta be different than what I was shown. And then I gotta take action and run straight into this pain that I was feeling, unlock those boxes of hurt, rip them out, throw them away, use them as fuel and power and everything else that I did, and replace those spaces in my soul with love. And as I did that, the way that I showed up for myself and the way that I showed up in the world changed. And it's led me to literally the precipice of what I'm doing today as I continue to take these steps through the next door that I'm supposed to walk through. So it's been a beautiful journey, and it is here. It is really all here. I'll tell a little story about I was on a show last night with my wife, and this woman, it's the third show in a row that I've been on that this has happened, talks about, I'm alone and I feel all by myself. So what I said was, and this is a harsh reality. You're alone and you feel like you're by yourself because that's what you tell yourself. If you continue to say you're alone,
absolutely,
guess what you're going to feel like? You're alone. So what can you do? Move forward, take action. What can you do to go get around people and connect with people in a different way to not feel alone? And I told her, I said, you're here tonight on this show, and I'm proud of you for speaking your truth, and I see you in this moment. But here's some tools and some techniques and some things that you can do that I did to help pull yourself from this re-victimization, victim mindset you're in, and pull yourself into that warrior mindset that you need to go towards in order to never feel alone again, in order to own your happiness, in order to stand firm in your power of who you are as a human being, and think, I am who I am because of these experiences, not in spite of them. So it's a different mentality.
There's a power in it. I think, Walt, as you know, I do a lot of work with people in grief on my other side of things. And that's what I hear all the time as well. I hear, I'm alone, I've been left, I've been abandoned, I'm alone. And it's so true. It's because that's the perception they have. That's the belief that they're actually sowing in their hearts, and they don't realize that it just takes that simple choice to make that choice to step out of that cycle of their own self abuse. I want to jump back to something, Walt, because there's something that I think is really important in your story as well. One of the things that I've said when I teach about spiritual warriorship, or I talk to people about spiritual warriorship, the virtues that we have, virtues of compassion and forgiveness, and these, forgiveness not being a tool, it's a power, right? You really got that, because I remember in part of your book that you came to a place where you had compassion for your father, the very person who abused you. And ladies and gentlemen, that is a testament to really what spiritual warriorship is all about. To have the power to wield that sword of compassion, to wield that sword of forgiveness to the very people that caused you the suffering. I mean, that for you must have been a massive aha moment, and recognizing how far you had come to do that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, look, forgiveness was tough for me. I spent years and years and years thinking to myself, why would I forgive the people who hurt me? Screw them. I'm not going to let them off the hook. I'm not going to let them feel like it's okay that they did this to me. And I'm saying it the way I'm saying, because that's how I said it in my heart and my soul. Meanwhile, my soul is just being poisoned by the pain I'm carrying.
Yeah.
What really helped me, and I talk about this in the 4 Keys to Living an Extraordinary Life and the power of forgiveness, is in the last chapter of my memoir, is realizing that hurt people hurt people. When I realized that all of my abusers had themselves been abused, and because they didn't have the courage, or more importantly, the belief that if they faced their pain, there was really happiness on the other side of that, and this beautiful, abundant life waiting for them, they stayed stuck in quiet desperation and in this emotional state, as in that victim mentality, where they were transferring the generational cycles onto me. I mean, let's be real. All abuse is done 78% of the time. Abuse is by a family member, because we sweep things under the rug. We don't talk about it. It's uncomfortable. We don't want to ruin our family name. That's what I would be told, right?
Yeah, and you're also frightened of being judged.
All of it. And you're judging yourself, and you're like, why didn't I say something? Why didn't I? There's so many emotions involved. But once I realized forgiveness was for me, forgiveness was for me to let go of the pain I was hanging on to. Forgiveness in the times I didn't show up as my best self, and maybe I was an a-hole, maybe I was whatever. Forgiveness was still for me in those moments. And I had a choice, because I built the self-awareness over time, to either continue to wallow in the self-pity and limit my capacity as a human being, or to lean into this forgiveness and start to discover, how do I really forgive somebody who hurt me in that way? Understanding hurt people gave me empathy. I still realized it wasn't okay what they did to me.
No.
I wasn't condoning what they did to me. I didn't run and go tell them, I forgive you. It's okay. You can go live happy now. I forgave because it allowed me the space to capitalize on the love that filled my capacity as a human being to be a better version of me. And I'll tell you a little story. I think this is so crucial. So I feel like my mother and my father were a little bit easier to forgive. You know, my mom never hit me, but I didn't see her for 10 years of my life. There's a lot of neglect there. She allowed the abuse to happen because she was a battered woman herself and couldn't even protect herself, much less her kids. So my dad did some horrific things to me. My little brother's mother, with my stepmother, who made me drink scalding hot water and really abused the heck out of me. She had passed away, so I didn't harbor that as much anymore. But my stepfather, who used to throw me into the basements in the dark for hours at a time, I saw him when I was 19 years old, and it was the first time I brought my wife home to meet my family, or I was 20. First time I brought her home. And I hadn't seen my mom in a decade. My 2 sisters went to my mom's house, so I went to go visit them too, because I wanted to see my sisters. And we're hanging out. We get there, we're hanging out, giving hugs, and my little sister's talking to somebody by the back door next to the carport. And I'm thinking it's my mom's boyfriend, because I never met her boyfriend, obviously. So I walk in the kitchen to get a drink, And I can still just visually just see this. I can see the little green old Tupperware cup that I was drinking water out of. Like I could see the whole thing. And I'm filling this cup up and I go to turn and I go to walk back into the living room. And I was like, hey, what's up, dude? And he looks at me and he goes, hey, Walt. And I'm like, And I take 2 steps, 1, 2. And I'm think to myself, holy shit, that's him. That's Bruce. That's the man that used to throw me into basements and beat me to the brink of my sanity. And my wife is like, what's wrong? Because I stop in the middle of the living room, like, because it just hits me. She said she could see the tone of my face, white and red and white and red. And this is the most angry to this day that I've ever been in my life. And I look at my mother, because now I'm a man.
Yeah.
I ain't a little boy no more. I ain't 8 years old no more. I'm a man. And I look at my mom and I said, if you don't make him leave, I'm going to stab him to death straight up in front of everybody. And I meant it, every word of that. She looks at my older sister and my older sister's like, Walt, don't play. You better go get his ass out of here. And so my mom runs over there. She makes him leave. The only reason I didn't go do that at that moment was because my little sister was there talking to him.
Yeah.
And 12 years later, my little sister gets married. A lot of healing had happened since then, a lot of forgiveness, a lot of the realization of, if I want to be the best dad and husband I can be for those people I love the most, my daughters and my wife, I got to let go of this pain I'm hanging on to because it's not serving me. I got to let it go. So I had really forgiven. I see him 12 years later at my little sister's wedding. And I was able to walk up to him, shake his hand, tell him congratulations. Now, we didn't hang out. I didn't get chummy. I was like, what's up, bro? Let me give you a hug. It's okay that you used to throw me in. I didn't do anything like that. What I did was I shook his hand, told him congratulations. I walked back over, danced with my wife, danced with my daughters, danced with my mom, danced with my sisters who were there. And I just had fun. And that's the difference between forgiving and not forgiving. 12 years later, I would have sat there and probably stared at him all night thinking about how I could hurt him.
I think that's important because you also have to have an awareness of the potential anger that you have. I'm betting for now, ladies and gentlemen, if you see me fidgeting like a freaking rabbit on heat, it's because I've got a window above here and it's bearing down on me with the sun. And I'd like to say that it's divine light cascading on my beautiful spiritual self.
I was going to say
not.
It's the beautiful sunlight cascading on your spirituality today, Jock.
That's what I'll say. But really, to be honest, it could shut the freaking thing off so that I could actually see what I'm doing here.
Really, you just need a blind. to put up. But
I just need to get up there and put a blind on. However, as I was saying before I rudely interrupted you and me and everything else is there, I think it's important as well that people have to understand the capacity to anger and the capacity to understand anger, because often when there is mental abuse and there's physical abuse, that anger is an uncontrollable fire that we can let out of control. And I think it's important that you exemplify this, that you manage to have an awareness and you manage to make the right choice and to control that anger. But there had to be, at some point, a way of you channeling that anger. How did you do that?
Well, I think part of it's surrender. In my spiritual journey, I talk about at 19 years old going into a church.
Yeah, I remember
up
that.
to the steps, which was the altar, but I didn't know it was called the altar. There was no God in my house growing up. So, and in this anger, tumultuous environment of like beating other men up, super protective women and kids, because I felt like I could protect them when maybe they couldn't protect themselves. So it was almost like me still protecting the little boy in me through other people, and letting a lot of pain out on that altar, just sobbing for 15 or 20 minutes uncontrollably to unpack a lot of what I was hanging on to. Now, I didn't go there and I was healed and, it's a miracle. No, there was still a lot of work I needed to do.
You mean you never had a divine revelation?
But that was the moment when I really, for me, my spirituality comes through God. So that was the moment where I gave my life to God. I think just that conversation between me and him, a spiritual.
Yeah, we talked about that in the last episode, actually, where you went more into your faith and how you found that.
But so for me, I think later on, there was something that I felt like was bigger than me out in the world at that point. At this point, 12 years later, when I see him, I've attained the ability through self-awareness and then through making mistakes and doing it right to respond versus react to my trigger. Because here's the reality. People think you heal and you're not going to get triggered. Bullshit. Like, you're going to be triggered. I still get triggered today.
I was going to say to you, do you still get triggered?
Yeah, I still get triggered. If somebody walks up to me, I had somebody recently, they relapsed on alcohol. And they did this to about 4 of us. And they start texting me, F you, F this, all this. It totally took me back to the way I was talked to as a little boy.
Yeah.
And so I said, I don't do conversations like this over text. You want to jump on a call? Let's jump on a call. F you, I'm not jumping on a call with you. And I'm thinking, this ain't even about me. Like, I don't deserve this for sure.
Yeah.
But I was triggered. So I got my phone, right? I got my phone. I'm like, shaking, and I'm like, get ready to text back, and the venom wanted to come out, and I'm like, and I'm thinking, you freaking coward, you wouldn't talk to me like this.
In your mind, you're actually you're plotting his downfall.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, you coward, oh, you know. And then it hit me, and it only hit me this way, Jock, because of the work that I did. So you guys out there, listen, I want you to really hear this. It takes intentional action to move yourself forward when triggered.
Mm-hmm.
I realized in the moment, this ain't even about me. Something's wrong with them. Something happened with them. Come to find out, he relapsed on alcohol and he was drunk and just lashing out at everybody in his life. And I responded with love. Not that I allowed the abuse that he was trying to put on me to happen. I set the boundary quick, but I responded with love. And instead of me being so pissed the rest of the day about it, I just went on and enjoyed my day because it wasn't even about me. So you're going to get triggered and things in life are going to happen, and pow, you're going to be right back to where you're at. Not because you haven't healed, but because it will still be a trigger. Your ability to react versus respond is in those moments when you're triggered to take a step back and say, I feel like I'm being challenged right now. This is either an evil spirit coming at me, or for me, I felt like, is this God testing me, bro? Is God testing me right now to see if I can really handle what's going to come from some people, because I talk about trauma healing, and be able to walk in what I say. Let me make sure I respond in the way that I'm helping teach other people to do.
Yeah, you say that you respond with love, but I would challenge that and say that you respond with compassion, because you can't necessarily respond. This is my personal, but you can't respond with love until you actually have a compassionate heart and you come to a level of understanding. Right. So your level of compassion has to really come forward first, I think. Where did empathy. You? Yeah, exactly. You had to have a compassionate heart in order to understand them.
That's right. Like an empathy that, hey, I've been where they're at too, lashing out at people. When I was in that pit of despair with all those emotions, shame, embarrassment, anger, self-doubt, self-limiting beliefs, those moments when I didn't even feel like there was a ray of light in this cave that I lived in, of victimization and victim mindset, where I would lash out at people. I remember being there. I know what it's like to walk the journey and get out of there. Yeah. And it gives me empathy for somebody who is there. But I want to make sure people are really clear. That doesn't mean you just take somebody's shit. Yeah. You need to still set boundaries, because you owe you.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So would you consider yourself now to be happy?
Let me tell you, since I'm sure we'll probably end up talking about it at some point. So I had a breakdown in corporate America about 22 months ago, April of 20. Yeah. And just the stress, April 21, the stress, everything that came along with it. My brain finally just snapped. I took 2 months of disability because I just had a panic attack. I've never had one since. I never had one before that moment. Yeah. It was God leading me down to the door that he had opened, not the bolt lock door in front of me I was trying to kick open because I wanted control. And since I walked through that other door that was open, and I wrote my memoir, and I've sold just about 1,500 copies now. I got to look at my numbers again. I'm really close to that in 10 months.
You've done amazing. I mean, crazy. a lot of big authors don't even get a few hundred copies out. I mean, yeah, unless you're a household name, you get thousands, and
Right.
unless you're Prince Harry and have sold 40,000 within a week or something, you know what I mean? That's amazing. But to sell 1,500 copies, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you wonder what I was doing on my phone, right? I was texting my wife in the other office to say, "Be quiet, I'm live," because she's singing in the back office. And so if you hear any, that's my wife singing in the back office. So I wasn't being ignorant, ladies and gentlemen. I was just texting her over to say, "Hey, I'm live with Walt. Can you be quiet?" So I will pay for that later, ladies and gentlemen. Let me tell you, I will pay for that later.
Well, and
But
we all got to hear
yeah,
Jock
I mean,
sing
you've
a
done
little bar.
amazing. 1,500 copies
Well,
that you've sold.
And I think, so you asked me, like, what makes me happy? By the way, everybody, we just got to hear Jock sing. That's the first time. So
No, that was my wife.
No,
you haven't heard me sing.
Real quick. So sold 1,500 copies. It's helped so many people. Jock, people are texting me, email. I went back to therapy because of you. Because of reading your book and your story, I realized I can do what you did too.
Yeah.
And through the 4 keys, like, I'm working on being my best self, and it's helped repair my marriage. It's helped me be a better dad.
Yeah.
It's helped me be a better mom. Then going to speak, doing what I wanted to do for 25 years. I wanted to be a speaker that gives.
I remember
people
you telling me that. I remember we were sitting in the coffee shop and you were like, "That's what I was driven to do."
Yeah, it's been my passion. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. So when you ask the happiness, am I happy now? I am more happy than I've ever been in my life. My relationships are more fruitful than they've ever been. My level of surrender to, my spiritual, to the spirit that I need to follow, is fully embraced. And as I've walked this path, I'm happier than I ever thought I could possibly be. It's like 25% more happiness than I even knew was possible in my life, because I embraced the fear of the unknown, left corporate America, and set out to follow my purpose and my path in life that God had set out before me. It has unlocked happiness. It's almost like I struggle to articulate it. That's how happy I am.
And ladies and gentlemen, there's a reason that I asked him that out the blue, because there's one thing that you can learn from this. If Walt can go through what he did, if he can harness his spiritual power, his warrior mindset, and find happiness in his life through all the trauma and the turmoil and the pain and the suffering, then don't come to me and tell me that you cannot find happiness. Don't come and say that you'll never be happy because of what you've gone through. Because, ladies and gentlemen, happiness is inside of you. And it reminds me of the story of the musk deer who, looks all over the place to find its smell, its scent, goes all over the mountain, goes all over the forest because it smells this scent. And it drives itself mad. When in reality, it was coming from a gland inside itself. We're always chasing elusive happiness outside ourselves. And you can take that example that he found his happy. And if he found his happy, you can be sure that you can find your happy, and it just means igniting that warrior spirit inside of you.
Let's stay on this topic for a second, Jock, before you ask.
Absolutely.
Man, this is like, now I'm fired up. Like, you got me so hyped.
No, you've got him going, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to be giving fire now.
Adjusting in my chair and everything. So this is so important. There was a long time from the outside looking in, people thought that I had so much success. I was in the Navy. At this point, like, I'm married, I have 2 beautiful kids, I've become a naval officer after being enlisted for 10 years. From the outside lens looking in, people would say, "You're so lucky. Everything you do turns to gold." I had been Sailor of the Year and Junior Sailor of the Year in the Navy. I had had so much outward success.
Yeah.
But the thing was that I wasn't happy, and you said something, which is why I want to stay on this for a second. You
Absolutely.
said, happiness comes from within. So even my wife can't make me happy. My children can't make me happy.
No.
I have to make me happy. And when I started this journey in life to heal, my motivator initially was anger. I'm not going to let them hold me back in my adult life. I'm not going to let them control who I am now that I can make decisions for myself.
Yeah.
That's how I thought. And it was anger that fueled me. As I Fell in love with my wife. It started to be a little bit more love, wanting to be the best husband I could be for her. When I had my first daughter, it was a mind change for me. It was me praying over the both of them. Please, God, don't allow me to repeat the cycles in any way that I went through. And it was then my motivation became about love for these two beautiful, now three beautiful human beings in my life, my two daughters and my wife, that were really propelling me forward. But I knew that I had to find internal happiness and fill my own cup in order for me to show up for them and help overflow theirs, and let my wife overflow mine and my kids overflow mine. But they couldn't fill it. They could only overflow it and make it better. We all got a choice on whether or not we're going to embrace this journey and truly fall in love with ourselves so that we can have the happiness. And when you're standing in this pit of despair, you're standing in front of the dark tunnel, and that one of those tunnels that go through a mountain and they curve around the mountain so you can't even see the light on the other side. And you're thinking to yourself, shit, man, I don't know if I'm going to get to the light. Here's the thing. This is why I share the way that I do. Jock, this is why you do what you do. Absolutely. I'm not here to motivate or inspire you to take a step or do something. No. I'm here to give you the absolute belief that your history doesn't define your legacy, and where you start doesn't have to be where you finish. Because I know, because I walked the journey in spite of the fear of not knowing if I would heal. As soon as you get around that corner, think about, you drove through a mountain and in one of those tunnels, and you get around the corner and you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and you're like, I'm almost through. And when you come out the other side of that tunnel, it's almost so magnificent. You can't even, you got to squint.
Absolutely.
You're like, woo, the light is so bright. That's what's waiting for you on the other side of this journey. But you got to make the choice to find happiness. So if you're going to look at my story and say, holy crap, I can't believe Walt went through that. My story is not as bad. You're not going to find happiness. Don't compare your story to mine. Deal with the trauma and the experiences you've had that are keeping you from happiness to fulfill your potential. But if you're going to look at my story, I only want you to look at it and say, if that dude can do it, he's just a normal guy. And if he can do it, well, damn, so can I. And I'm going all in on happiness, because once you find that, everything else is beautiful.
That is so powerful. And the other thing I wanted to say is what is to experience happiness. I always say to people, to experience happiness, well, we get to a point where we feel happiness and we've changed our path from trauma and triumph and things. But to really experience it, and I'm sure that you'll agree with this, is it is not, you have, everything is within and you experience everything within. But if you really want to experience happiness, it's when you experience the happiness in another person that ignites the happiness inside of you. And as an example, this may sound a bit negative. I mean, I'm sitting here and I could be doing losing a few pounds, but I've watched a few programs in the past where people are overweight and they're struggling with addiction, and addiction is a terrible, a terrible thing. But no matter who's addicted, everybody has the power to get out of that addiction. And I saw this woman who was totally addicted. She was huge. But I willed her so much to lose it. You remember, she stepped on the scales and she had lost her first, whatever it was, 30 odd pounds or something. And I had a tear of happiness inside of me because I could experience her joy, her elation, her happiness. I watched, for those of you who have followed my other show, Deadly Departed, I spoke many years ago about an experience that I had when I was in a coffee shop, and a family comes in and they bring this young paraplegic boy in, and everybody's caught up in their own world and they're caught up in the material life, and and they're pandering to them. And I saw this little boy, and the mother got him a piece of toast. Oh yeah, she was stressed, dad was stressed, but I felt so much joy and happiness because of what that boy felt in a simple piece of toast.
Yeah.
That he was, and that was probably the best piece of toast he ever had. Just a simple thing. And that's when I realized that if I really want to truly experience happiness, then I have to experience happiness. I have to get to a point where I understand happiness within myself and my choices. Yeah. But to really experience it, I need to experience it in service to others. I need to experience that little boy with his toast and it being the best toast in the world, and feeling the elation and the happiness and the elation and the happiness that that woman had for dropping her first 30 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, what better way is there to experience happiness than having the experience for someone else within you?
I think there's three things for me that flow into that. Number one is enjoying the journey. I spent so many years feeling like the success professionally that I had would create a different legacy and move me further from where I started and all these things. And it did. But I never enjoyed the journey of what I was doing. So the last 2 years, I've been super focused on just really enjoying this journey, because I don't have a destination. I have a compass that guides my next thing. I have goals that I want to hit, but that's not the destination. My life is the destination. What I realized is, by enjoying the journey, that's where the sauce is at. That's where the juice is at. That's where the joy is at. So slow down, be present, and enjoy the journey you're on. And even the struggles, embrace the struggles, because the struggles is where growth is. How boring to just have everything happen to you perfectly all the time. It's not realistic.
What would you learn?
You wouldn't learn anything. You wouldn't elevate. And I think the second thing is gratitude. You can't be pissed and ungrateful if you're thankful. And so there's so many people who have these expectations of everybody around them that maybe they don't even have on themselves, or maybe they do. And so I say this a lot. You've got 5 expectations. 4 of them are met. 1 of them aren't. We all focus on the one that isn't, instead of the beauty of the 4 that were just, given to us like a gift, and whatever that looks like. And so learn how to be grateful for what you have. Learn how to be grateful for the things and the way people are showing up in your life, not the one expectation that they didn't meet, but the 4 that they did. Your whole attitude will be different, and the way people treat you will be different. And the last thing is what you said, Jock, and it's so huge. Everybody listening to this, I want you to think about it. Have you ever served somebody else, helped somebody else, done something for somebody else, and been pissed at the same time? Been angry, been contemptuous in your heart at the same time? Hell no, you can't. It's literally emotionally impossible. When you're in service to others and you take the focus off you and you put it on others, that's the biggest reason my happiness is different, Jock.
Absolutely.
Because the people who come back and tell me that I've transformed their life, there's a guy in an addiction center that said he was going to take his life. And after hearing me speak on a stage, he goes, I feel like I'm going to make it. Like,
see,
I start to get
what it's
about it, bro, because
jeez,
it's not even a compliment. It's the most humbling thing another human being can ever say to you. And it's like, you want happiness? You want real freaking happiness?
Experience it.
Experience that.
Yeah. There's nothing beats that. There's nothing beat that. When you give service, well, without you and I have spoken about this many times. You give service without condition. Not that I'm given so I can get. Not that I'm given so in the back of my subconscious mind, it's like, oh yeah, well, this is good because I've done a good thing and it's supposed to be the way it is. No, when you serve without condition in order to bring joy and happiness to someone else, or to change their existence or the trajectory that they're on, the person who's going to commit suicide, take his life. I mean, isn't that what it's all about? I mean, yes. Everything, all material things fall by the wayside when you serve someone with your higher purpose and your passion.
Yes.
And you take that purpose and your passion and you're like, the purpose and the passion is not for me, it's for you.
Correct. And when you're on your deathbed and you're sitting there reflecting on your own life in that moment, are you going to care that you had a boat or a Mercedes or a big house? Or are you going to think about those little moments on your journey that you just, because you listened today, you decided to start really enjoying, and those people that you've affected on the way that have changed their lives and went on to do more for other people you're never even going to know about? Are you going to reflect on that? Or are you going to reflect on the things you bought? I promise you you're going to reflect on the impact you had.
Absolutely.
That's the life. That's the juice. That's the happiness.
That's how we experience happiness, ladies and gentlemen.
So stop putting your happiness into freaking things or the money you make.
Yeah.
And start putting them into the impact that you're capable of, that you need to step into that's going to transform somebody's life. Don't deny them the opportunity to live their best life because you didn't have the courage to step into yours and share it.
That's so powerful, Walt. And you know what? For those of you ladies and gentlemen that are like, well, how do I do this? Because you don't understand it. You've heard Walt talk about 4 different things, and it's a nice segue because in order to experience this happiness, there's certain things. There's keys. There's keys to your inner happiness. There's keys to your greatest fulfilled life that you can create for yourself. And Walt has created these keys. For those of you who don't understand, and maybe asking, well, yeah, I love it. I'm fired up. How can I? And remember, we're not motivation. Motivation is temporary elation. We're sowing seeds of transformation and change in you. But how can you do that? Well, Walt's got 4 keys, and this is a great segue in. He's going to tell you about these 4 keys that you could adopt in your life to transform it. Walt, give me the keys.
I love this. So I'm going to give about a 60-second story of why this is so important to me. So when I started this journey, my wife had told me, leave corporate America, write your book. I've been begging you to do this for a decade. You wanted to speak as your profession for 25 years, even though you've been speaking professionally in corporate America in the military. And then she asked me as I'm writing the book, she goes, how did you actually heal? And I thought, shit, I don't know that I've really ever conceptualized that.
Yeah.
I just kind of did it. I for me, I didn't go to therapy. I think therapy is great. Counseling is great. For me, It was just kind of this journey that I lived. And so I really sat and thought. I didn't go to the internet and say, how do you heal from trauma? I sat and I really thought to myself, how did I do it? And I thought about the moments when the switch clicked for me mentally and emotionally, and I just changed. And I came up with these 4 keys to living an extraordinary life, how to use your past as rocket fuel for your future. This isn't a shameless plug for my book, but I put them in the back of my memoir. And most people told me not to put it in there. They told They told me to go write a second book, which I will at some point. But I said, no. When somebody finishes my story and they think to themselves, oh my, this dude made it. Oh my God, look at the triumph. I can do what he did. I want them to flip the page and say, holy crap, this is how he did it. Oh,
there's the keys. There's the keys that you're giving them. And that for me, well, that's a gift. That book is a gift, but that's a gift that you're giving them that is priceless.
Well, because I've been there. So I want them to have it in the moment when they're feeling that emotion, because the transformation comes from the emotion, the deep-rooted emotion, not from, like you said, the elation of the inspiration. So the first thing that I talk about in this, and I got to tell you, is speak your truth. There's so many different ways you can get to the point of speaking your truth. You can write things down on a journal. People say, write something and throw it in a fire, write your deepest pain and throw it in a fire. They say, write it, put it in a balloon and let it fly away. But I got to tell you, all those things are great to prepare you for speaking out loud. Those things, those challenges you might be going through now, but more importantly, the traumas that you've been through. There's nothing more freeing than speaking your truth. It's the difference to me between living your life. I picture it in my head because it's what I felt like at times. I'm in the ocean. There's an anchor and a giant chain on my ankle, and I'm almost to the top of the water. And I can see the light. I know there's air on the other side of the water, but I'm just drowning. I'm just drowning because I've got this truth inside of me, and I feel shame because it's a secret and nobody wants to carry a secret. And I feel anger and I feel pain and I feel embarrassment and judgment and all these things. And I just can't really get to this happiness I know is there. I know people get it. When I spoke my truth for the first time, and here's the thing, guys, you're not going to share your deepest, darkest secrets the first time. You're going to share a piece of your story and a piece. And a piece. And you might never write a book like I did, but it's taken me years to unlock this, like an onion that opens up. And when I spoke that truth, it was kind of like somebody came and snapped bolt cutters on that chain. And have you ever been down in a pool and you're wrestling and someone's holding you down in a pool and you're like trying to breathe and you start to panic?
You kind of
That's what it was like. And snap the chain and you fly out of this water. And you take this big,
you can breathe,
first gasping breath of air where you don't feel like you're drowning, and it's full of hope and light and love and life. That's speaking your truth. Find your one trusted advisor to speak the one truth you've been yearning, that's sitting on your chest like an elephant. You've been yearning to tell somebody.
Peel away those layers of the onion.
It will start to change your life immediately.
Boom.
Immediately. Go to therapy, go to counseling, find me, find Jock. Like, do what you got to do. Figure it out, take the action. The next thing, there's 2 pieces to the second step. The first one's acceptance. Look, I was locked in closets and chained to beds and beaten.
Powerful acceptance.
They tried to break me, but they could never break my spirit, because everybody's spirit, if you're listening to this, your spirit's unbreakable too. And I want you to know that. And you got to accept the trauma for what it is. It happened. You can't go back and change it. I can't do anything about it, but I can figure out how to use it as fuel. You can figure out how to use it as fuel. So it's just, yes, this happened, or no, it didn't happen. Don't downplay it. Don't diminish it. When you diminish it, you add more shame to something you're already struggling with.
Yeah.
Just accept what it is. And then you got to acknowledge the pain around the emotion. If you're sitting out there listening to this and you're feeling what I'm saying, I know that there's a hurt little boy or little girl inside of you, or adult who maybe has been through some trauma, that you're just trying to push and tuck away. I'm fine. Nothing's bothering me, when really you're dying inside.
I think, and that's sorry to interject, but I think that's the key. That's another key. Well, not, we're not your keys, but I'm not stealing your keys, for God's sake. But
I'll let you borrow. Go ahead.
He's got it after this podcast. Jock, leave my freaking keys alone. It comes down to, it's the thing where, when you say I'm fine, we know that when you say I'm fine, you ain't fine. You're hiding, and you're hiding your pain.
And the biggest flex of strength is vulnerability. Especially, this is where women have a superpower. Men, listen to what I'm saying. I have probably cried more in the last 2 years than I have in my adult life. It was like a badge of honor that I didn't cry for decades. I don't cry. I've been through so much shit. I don't even cry about stuff. That's how tough I am. When I realized that vulnerability was the biggest flex of strength you can ever have. And by the way, women want men who are vulnerable. And it strengthens relationships too. And women, you guys got to create a safe space for your man to be vulnerable without judgment. You
allow your man to be vulnerable.
Support, create a safe space so that he continues to be vulnerable. If you shut his emotion down, he'll never come to you again. You got one shot to make it right. Make sure that you do. And so it's acknowledging those emotions that are behind it, all the different things, and then unpacking those so that you can continue the healing journey. The third key is forgiveness. And we talked about that a little bit. So I won't
absolutely, yeah.
Forgiveness for me was absolutely the hardest piece of my entire healing journey.
Is. Mm-hmm.
But it was really, as I spoke my truth, as I accepted it, and what happened to me, as I acknowledged the emotions, it allowed me the space, because I stripped away so much of the pain that was sitting just below my chest and replaced it with love. It allowed me the capacity and the space to actually forgive. So forgiveness, a lot of times, it won't be the first thing that you do. Forgiveness is going to come as you work those first 2 pieces of these keys. And once you forgive, it really is, for me, one of the last pieces in your healing journey, where it's the release. You can physically feel the change in you, the emotional change in you, the mental change in you. And then you just start to move through life in a much different way, at a capacity that's closer to your ceiling versus a capacity that's closer to your floor, because you don't forgive. So forgiveness will maximize your potential instead of keeping you living at a fraction of it.
And I think it's important to understand as well, Walt, that and I've taught this many times. Some people kind of disagree with it. I've always said forgiveness is a divine power, but you don't have to. A lot of people say forgiveness is a skill. It's not a skill. Skill's temporary. If it's a skill, you're going to learn how to. Play a basketball, you play football, you get good at that one thing, but it's not going to last you forever. What's his face that just retired? I mean, that's his. He's got skills, but now he's not using it. Forgiveness is a divine power, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. But you don't have to forgive anyone else, and you don't necessarily have to forgive you. And this is a deeper element of forgiveness. You have to forgive the judgment that you have made. That's the power in it. You forgive the judgment of the situation, the judgment of the other, of the judgment of you. And that is truly, like Walt's saying, cutting that chain, destroying that chain is to forgive the judgment that you have on yourself. And that is to look at it in a different perspective, is that will release you from the prison that you create in your own mind.
There's a freedom, right? Like you said, prison's a perfect example, because it is a mental and emotional prison. There's a freedom that comes with that you don't know, that no matter how much I talk about it, or Jock talks about it, or anybody else, you're never going to really understand until you do it. And then when you do it, you'll think to yourself, I totally get what these two guys were saying.
Yeah.
And so the fourth key, once you work those three things, and during your healing journey, you expose these superpowers. And I got to tell you, the people that have been through the hardest things, have been through trauma, which is frankly pretty much every single one of us on this planet, and chosen to walk their healing journey and step into the light and abundance on the other side of that, they have the most compassion and grit and power and empathy and initiative than anybody I've ever met.
Absolutely.
Because you have perspective of where you were and where you're at now. And you expose these gifts your trauma has given you and who you are because of your trauma. That's why I don't regret any piece of my story. I am who I am because of all of my experiences. You take one of those experiences away, and now I lose one of my gifts that I could use to potentially help save somebody else's life. And here's the dopest part.
And again, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. He just said it. The potential to serve someone else.
Right. And here's the coolest part. So as I'm writing the book, and I write this out, and I tell epiphanies and like, what do each of the pieces mean to me? Stephanie's looking at it. My wife's looking at it, and she goes, that spells safe. The first letters spell safe. And that's
so cool.
And I'm thinking to myself, like, oh, no kidding. That's pretty cool. And immediately, you know what I thought? We need to create an internal environment where we feel safe in order to thrive. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And I teach us at speaking events, master classes, all the different places that I talk. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The first piece you need to self-actualization is food, shelter, and water. All that does is allow you to survive. You don't die if you have those things.
That's a survival factor.
Dreams and anything else that comes along with that.
Yeah.
The next phase of self-actualization is safety. And people correlate safety to an external environment. But no. Like, you need to create a safe external environment too. But really, the safety comes from the internal environment you create. Because if you're internally safe, you can thrive, you can hope, you can dream, you can set boundaries, you can live in happiness. You can create the external safe environment if internally you feel safe. When I was being abused as a boy, I didn't feel safe internally or externally. So I survived second to second, minute to minute, hour by hour, day by day, until I moved in with my aunt. That was my first time my external environment was safe. But what she did for me in those moments was love me, make me feel I was enough, treat me, like, champion me. She's still, like, outside of my wife, maybe my life's biggest fan.
Yeah.
And she helped me start to create the internal safe environment where I can start to thrive in the external. Then it was up to me to continue to take that journey along myself. So safe internal environment through the 4 keys to living an extraordinary life. It's waiting for you. All you got to do is make the choice to get out there and grab it, and then execute and take the steps that are laid out for you already.
That's amazing, Walt. And you know what? That just you talking about that safety aspect is what I want to say as well. Another great example of someone who actually exemplified that was your man in Africa that was, I had it in the tip of my tongue there, and now went Nelson Mandela. See, I must be getting older and maybe need some vitamins or something.
I mean, you're Nelson Mandela. I'm just going to throw that out there now.
I feel this creaking. If you hear the chair creaking, it's my bones. No. Nelson Mandela, that exemplifies exactly what you said. I mean, he was free in his mind. He really felt the safe place. And that's what gave him, I think, the power to do what he did and to survive the way that he did. And, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard, 4 keys are a gift that you can find in his book, but Walt's got there's so much more actually, and I want to kind of jump on before we kind of finish off. We got to talk about your lovely lady Stephanie.
Yes.
You and Stephanie are just a power force to be reckoned with, and you've joined together, and I mean, you've created something now that I think is phenomenal. Legacy Warrior podcast is coming in, and obviously these 4 keys are going to take a big place in that. But let's talk a little bit about you and Steph and the work that you and Steph are going to be doing. And ladies and gentlemen, heavens, you know, the two of them are going to be back on my show. I kind of nagged Steph a little bit for a wee while to get on and do this podcast because the two of them are great. And she's got full of light, and I can't wait to have her on there. But you guys are now stepping out, stepping forward, and you've got this new podcast coming up as well. Tell me about that.
So it's called Legacy Warrior Podcast. It'll be available on all podcast platforms. Our first release, we're going to drop 3 or 4 episodes at once on February 14th. Here's our mission.
What a day to choose.
Yeah, right. Yes, on purpose, right? So here's our mission. The goal of Legacy Warriors is to teach people to maximize their life potential so that they can build healthy relationships, not only internally, but externally. We only start to really create an environment where we don't continue to have generational cycles permeate families and, by helping people get healthily internally first. And so it's really going to have, there's going to be so many different types of episodes on here, but it's really teaching people how to fight to not only be their hero, but to be the hero of their families. That's how we change generational cycles. It's going to take all of us to do it. Jock and I can't do it on our own. Me and Steph can't do it on our own. This is about building a warrior movement of people dedicated to changing humanity. And so if you're on the precipice, you're sick and tired of sick and tired. If you're ready to really make a change, if you're ready to take action, this is going to be the podcast for you. If you're going to wallow in your self-pity, and you're going to feel sorry for yourself,
don't listen.
I'm probably going to piss you off on the podcast. And you know, it's amazing because I told Stephanie, and I love my wife. I've been married 23 years for those of you guys who don't know.
By the way, ladies, she's a relationship warrior. She is.
Yes. She's so powerful.
Yeah.
You know, and she loved me when I was unlovable. But she's so powerful. And what's beautiful is you've got this masculine energy from me and feminine energy from her. And she's not as loud and boisterous as me. But that doesn't mean what she says is any less powerful.
She's got some wisdom.
People mistake projection of voice for power. It's absolutely false. It's what you actually say that's powerful. Yeah. And we've been on 2 different episodes this last week. Super proud of her for embracing the fear of and overcoming her own fear about, does she have anything to say?
She did that night that we were chatting, and I said, "Bring her on, and let's just have a chat." Yes. And we weren't doing it. It was like a podcast. We weren't doing it, but you know, she got the taste.
Yeah, and now she's like hungry, so she's ready to just tear it up. And she's so phenomenal at what she does. And I feel like the chemistry between, obviously we're married, so we have good chemistry, but the chemistry and the wisdom that we bring collectively, she's 44 and 46. It's 90 years of life experience. We're going to do 1 week where we talk about a topic. Then we're going to do a week where we have a guest. Then a week where we talk about a topic, and a week where we have the guest. Because the power is in giving the voiceless a voice. And Stephanie and I can't do that on our own. Like I said, it's got to be guests that can reach the person that me and her can't reach. That's how
every voice has an audience waiting to listen to.
Amen, brother. Amen to that. And if you're out there listening and you're thinking to yourself, I got a damn voice too. I got a story too. Lean into your story.
Yeah.
Use your story to help save one. Don't focus on the masses. Focus on the one. Focus on you. And after you focus on you, you can start focusing on service to others and just help the one. And your life, I promise you, gosh, your life will transform the first time somebody says what you did for them changed their life.
That is how you experience happiness, ladies and gentlemen. Walt, I want to thank you for being with me today. You're going to see Walt and I. Walt's going to come back, and Walt and Stephanie's coming back. I can't wait to have the both of them on, and we'll get into some really fun stuff. But also, if you're in North Carolina this year, keep in touch with us, because Walt and I will be speaking at a native Jock, shut up. at a veterans. What was it? At a veterans organization, we'll be arranging that. So if you're a veteran and you're in North Carolina, Virginia, anywhere, then keep in touch with us, because we'll be announcing that very soon, and you will have Walt and I for the day as well. And let's face it, guys, when the two of us get on stage, anything could happen. Let's face it. Mm-hmm. So, Walt, what's for you over the next? Obviously, you've got Legacy Warrior, the podcast, which really support that. But you're also going to be developing curriculums and stuff like that for organizations and companies and things to transform them from the inside out. Tell us a little bit of that before we finish, and then we'll crack off.
Yeah, so my two priorities right this second is the Legacy Warrior podcast launch, and then it's also continuing to speak. I've been in Canada, all over the U.S., speaking to first responders, child welfare advocates, survivor conferences that I'm going to get people to call warrior conferences, veteran groups. And so it's really about helping everybody create this safe environment. And so like Jock said, both of us travel to go do speaking engagements. And so make sure of what we're talking about you guys love. And there's an opportunity for us to come pour into your group, your company, your conference, whatever it is, please reach out to us.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'm going to do this year, well, not the last thing, but the next priority is to create this curriculum that I plan on licensing to veteran groups, to church groups, to addiction centers, to people where I know that others are still hurting, teaching them how to create this safe internal environment so that they can really step into their life in a different way and live happy and create the ripple effect that every single one of us has a potential to do. So a lot of big things coming. You can go to waltmckinley.com to keep up with me. I am on Facebook. I'm under Walter, E-R, McKinley.
Walter.
Come find me there. Come find me there, or on Instagram at Walt McKinley Inspiration. And just let's stay connected. Be part of this warrior nation and warrior movement. I need every single person I can to light the path in the darkness for those still walking in it. It will take all of us to change humanity together. So let's build this movement, something we can all be proud of, and let's impact humanity and eradicate these generational cycles forever.
That's amazing, Walt. Walt, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest gift that you can give humanity is the gift of service, and there is a gift right in front of you. If you're watching the podcast, then obviously you can see the both of us, and you can see me with my shining light on and everything else and fidgeting like a rabbit in heat. But if you're listening, we thank you for listening and watching today. We thank you for being there. Go out, be of service to humanity. Live your passion and your purpose. Get Walt's book. And if you can't connect with him, connect with me. I'll put you in touch with him. Heck, the book can change your life, and it's worth it. Walt, my friend, I can't wait to have you back. This has been absolutely awesome. This is 21 Virtues. Be the warrior you were meant to be. God bless.